Lesson 9, Unit 4. Contract Administration. It is important that every team member is responsible for compliance with the donor contract. This means that all members should have a good understanding of the contract clauses and procedures to obtain authorization for exceptions. All project team members should have access to all related contracts, agreements, and amendments. All project team members should know how to find contract documents either in an electronic system and the hard copy. Project team members should be able to list the major categories of disallowed costs or costs that must have prior approval from the donor. Project team members should know the reporting dates and requirements of the donor. As a project manager, you're responsible for important elements of contract administration. These include the following: monitor performance of contract against performance indicators to ensure all obligations under agreements are being met. Ensure that obligations to contractors are met in accordance with contractual agreements. Manage contract variations in accordance with contract provisions and organizational policies and procedures. Resolve disputes or complaints in accordance with contractual requirements. Obtain approvals in accordance with the stipulations in the contract, and maintaining communications on the performance of the contract with all stakeholders in accordance with organizational protocols and standards. During implementation, you will be involved in the solicitation process to identify and select vendors. Solicitation management is the process of obtaining information from prospective sellers on how the needs of the procurement project can be met. Soliciting services or goods from vendors should follow a standard method that helps ensure a consistent approach based on the different needs, regulations, and categories. There are several methods to solicit bids from vendors. The most common methods are requests for quotations, requests for proposals, and competitive bidding. An RFQ is a document requesting quotes from prospective vendors. The RFQ provides a detailed description of the goods required, quantity required, the date when the goods should be delivered, and other relevant terms and conditions as dictated by the project. This is useful to get an idea of the approximate cost of the goods or services you want to purchase. RFQs are usually made for goods and services that are standard, such as the purchase of computers and internet services. An RFP document typically solicits proposals for goods or services from potential vendors and includes the scope of work, generic specifications, terms and conditions, and other requirements. Through this process, the project is able to assess each individual proposal and award contracts based on the best overall value and services. You can use this method when the purchase of goods and services are not standard, such as the development of a monitoring system or project evaluation services. You can select the potential vendors from a short list of approved sellers kept by the procurement unit. Competitive bidding is a process when a public notice is posted in various publications, where vendors are publicly invited to provide bids for the supply of goods or services. Responses from bidders can be in the form of an open or a sealed bid, depending on the requirements of the donor and the threshold levels. Competitive bidding can be at international or the local level, depending on the availability of vendors and contract thresholds. Solicitation is the process of sending to prospective vendors the RFQs, RFPs, and bid solicitations. The information provided should include detailed information on the project, the requirements, the statement of work, the schedule, and instructions on how to submit the quotes or bid documents. The clarity and completeness of this information will increase the quality of responses from all vendors. Most organizations will have a standard process and criteria to evaluate proposals before they send a formal proposal. The evaluation should help rate or score the proposals. Usually, the method is to assign a weight to each criterion to indicate its importance. Once you have the bids from the vendors, a small team should be organized to review and rate each proposal. This will make the selection process more transparent and ensure the organization selects the best proposal. The table shows an example of a proposal evaluation sheet that the team can use to rank the proposal and select the best one. The criteria identifies the key areas to evaluate each proposal. The criteria is given a weight that then is used to rate each proposal. The proposal with the highest rate enters the negotiation process. Once all contract negotiations are complete, the next step is to award the contract, sign the contract document, and any amendment or annex that is part of the contract. The project should get a copy of the contract, which will be used to monitor the delivery of goods or services and notify the procurement unit if there are any discrepancies. The goal of contract administration is to ensure that the vendor performance meets contractual requirements, which are legal relationships that are subject to local laws. Good contract administration can help you avoid many problems. You and your team should be actively involved in administering the contract so that everyone knows the importance of good procurement management. If needed, you should seek expert advice about contractual issues. An important part of contract administration is vendor management. As a project manager, you have a responsibility to manage the relationship with vendors and ensure they provide you with the goods and services as requested in the contract. You should meet on a regular basis with the procurement department to discuss the progress for each procured item by reviewing all documented specifications for each deliverable and the findings from quality control.